open session to order. So before we even start the meeting, I'm just going to share a little piece of information with you guys. We're on a new app. We're all trying to figure it out and work with it, so just kind of bear with us if we all of a sudden lose where we are. So, and with that said, there is nothing to report in closed session, and so I am going to ask everyone to stand and join me in the pledge. And June, I believe you're our highlight tonight, so why don't you lead us? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I'm going to call for an approval of the agenda, please, as written. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All those, okay, the agenda passes as written. Okay, Dr. Young, our highlight for this evening.
Thank you, Rich. Welcome, trustees and everybody who had an opportunity to come and join us this evening. I'd like to welcome June Regis to the podium, who's our program manager. She has served the Benicia Unified School District for several years, doing a wonderful job with the preschool program. Right, and tonight, though, she has a sort of a broad scope of work that she does, and she's going to talk to us about and highlight the adult ed program that we have running here in Benicia, in which we do really good work. So welcome, June.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Thank you, Board of BUSD, for inviting me, and to the staff. The purpose of my visit tonight is, as Dr. Young pointed out, to share some highlights about the exciting things that we're having with our adult ed program. So our adult ed program came about, I think in the year 15-16, when the legislature decided that they were going to fund adult ed again. And so their Benicia Unified Adult Ed program was born, and we get about $150,000 from the state each year to run the program. We offer a number of programs. We offer GED programs. We offer ELL, which is English Language Learners, formerly known as ESL. That's what people are more familiar with, but they changed it to ELL. We do some family literacy classes. We do a bunch of CTE classes. Among our CTE classes, we have a math class that is a special class only for people that are trying to get into the unions. We are partnered with the unions for that class. We have a hospitality class. We have computer. We have a para-educator class. And we have and that's about all our classes for the time being. I want to highlight for us tonight some of our CTE classes that we have partnered with a couple of different places to offer. Through our partnerships, we have partnered with Napa Valley College. And Napa Valley College comes to us, they came to us last year, and they're offering it again this year. It's a hospitality class for the culinary field. And in that class, our clients will get a customer service banquet certification. They'll get food safety handlers training, and they'll get what we call a tips training, which is if you want to do alcoholic beverages in a restaurant. The beautiful thing about that class is that on the last night of the class, 4 different hotels, and this year Cash Creek, which is a gambling organization, is going to come, and they are doing on-the-spot interviews and hiring people right away. So that's a beautiful thing about our hospitality class. Then we have partnered with Solano County Office of Education, offering some para-educator classes. With Solano County Office of Ed for a paraeducator. We're actually buying their classes and co-enrolling their students. So both the County Office of Ed will get the credit for the classes as well as BUSD. So we're buying their classes. Our program is small compared to Vallejo and Fairfield, but it's unique to Benicia. And in order to encourage people to come and build it up, the partnerships are very important to us. One of our great partnerships is with the unions. And this year, we started on September the 11th this year, and we offered this apprenticeship math test preparation. And those beautiful young men you see there, 5 of them, they were able to pass the test in a month, and they also passed the interview. So they are all now apprenticeship with the Welding Union 342. So they got in and they started. The beautiful thing about apprenticeships is that our last governor asked to have 100,000 apprenticeships. Our new governor has vowed to have 1 million apprenticeships. So adult ed, they're really pushing for apprenticeship program. This program is unique in Solano County. We're the only people offering it. So we are having people coming from the Bay Area and as far as Sacramento coming down to take this class. It's happening right now. So it's offered on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And people are coming in every Tuesday and every Thursday to join the class. We have, in this class, not only have we partnered with the unions, but we also partnered with Solano College. So they send all their welding students over because they have found in the past they couldn't pass the test. This is the nexus that's helping them pass the test, this unique math that only unions seem to understand. And they're able to get that training and pass. We also partnered with Benicia, with Liberty High School to offer some math circles to their students to beef up their math and also their confidence. And now we are partnering with the high school where with their welding and automotive programs. So we had some carryover money that we need to spend. So Dr. Young thought that would be a great place to spend money where we'll beef up the automotive and welding center. The high school students will use it during the daytime, and the adult ed students will use it during the night. So, and anytime you're more than welcome to visit any of our adult ed classes. We also partner with the library. We give the library a portion of our money to run GED classes and ESL classes out of the library. They are used to running those classes there, and we figured that we just beef up their program, and because the community is used to going to the library to do ELL and GED classes there. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to our student reports, and they're going to report on activities at their schools for us.
Hi, I'm Piper Dean from Liberty High School, and this is what we've been doing. Liberty High School thanked their mentors, community members, and all staff members for their volunteer work on our annual holiday dinner. Our second semester has started, and we have kicked off with our new internship program, and several students have been able to shadow at their potential placements. Second semester, we have also started our mindfulness classes. For example, we have cooking, yoga, archery, and more. And we have had 5 seniors graduate in semester 1 and have started their college careers.
Oops, sorry. Hi, I'm Amanda Jari from Benicia High School, and some upcoming events we have are Student Staff Talent Show. So before, it used to be just students, but this year we invited staff to be in there. So it's on January 25th and 26th, and it's $8 for general entry. And our open house is on January 31st at 6 p.m. And we also have a winter dance on February 2nd, and our theme is Fire and Ice. So just to, like, to touch on that, it's like, well, I mean, it's Fire and Ice, sorry. And like half the dance floor is going to be split with blue and white lights, and the other half is going to be red and orange lights. And we also do have bids for that dance too now. And also for sports, our boys basketball team just played St. Pat's. Sadly, they lost, but it was a good game. And then the girls and boys basketball game got canceled yesterday due to the storm. And then our wrestling team is one more match away from being league champs this year. So
And
that's
these
it.
are all new leagues for us, right? So
Definitely.
you're doing quite well.
Yes.
All right,
All right. That's it. Thank you.
thank you.
Uh,
Okay, our superintendent will now give us a report on some activities or news that's going on in the district.
Sure. Just a couple of items. I wanted to point out that in the tech department that we have with lots of machines and things down that help the whole tech system run district-wide, and I want to recognize Trustee Wing. He donated, he's always donated lots of time, but he donated 2 items to us that have made a significant difference. I might have mentioned this before, but as part of other things I want to talk about briefly. But thank you for donating these 2 uninterrupted power supplies, because they're big, they're backup batteries. And the ones we had before, I think, would afford us 10 minutes of service or something like that if the power went down. But these are much more robust, and they're somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $20,000. And so he came into those through his workplace, and we thank you for that. And also you donated, seems like a small thing, but it's actually a big thing, these 2 giant racks, these computer racks, correct? And so we want to thank you for that too. It's made a big difference down there. So it's good when all that stuff is orderly and in place, and we're taking good care of it. So thank you. I'd like to recognize Sebastiano, our Director of Technology, but his careful analysis of the way things that operate, and he and his team were noticing that these file servers that we have were starting to fade. And they worked very closely and in a very timely fashion with HP to jump on that. And we got HP to replace those for us. And they're about $150,000 each. And in the replacement of those, which they did for free, and they came in and they put it all together, it extended the period of time where we're going to have to do that again. So that was timely. And we thank you for your work on that from the tech department. A couple of other things. At the student level, I'd like to point out that a total of 79 BHS students who are student athletes excelled at their sport and in the classroom during the fall season and the first semester. North Coast section honor students with a GPA between 3.5 and 3.79, which is amazing, and NCS scholar athletes as well as students with a GPA between 3.8 and 4.0 GPA as NCSS President's List scholar athletes. So tremendous accomplishment for BHS students. Congratulations to them. Also, 4 BHS student seniors placed 3rd in a statewide competition for the Financial Advisors Contest, sponsored by the Chartered Financial Analyst Society of LA and the California Council of Economic Education. So it's something I wanted to point out too. I thought that was a great achievement for us. So the other thing that we do, just for the audience, one of the things that we talk about in closed session is personnel matters, and we talk about retirements and such, and just wanted to point out that we will be having one of our much beloved custodians.
Not approving it.
Not approving, I know.
We're saying no.
Paul Salas, guy's amazing. He's been with us for 42 years over at Robert Semple, and you show up and you talk to him. He's just a wonderful guy, and the school looks great, and he's so enthusiastic, and he loves being there, and he's done such a great job. So I just wanted to note that, and the team over there, they just adore him, and they put a beautiful plaque together for him with his name on it, and they'll be hanging that in the gym. Actually, they don't call it a gym. That in the cafeteria in honor of him.
That's in 2 weeks, right?
And I believe that's in 2 weeks. They'll be celebrating him. So, anyways, terrific guy. So, our thoughts to him after 42 years of service. A couple of other items I just wanted to point out, and I'm not going to read this whole document to you, but this is the WASC. This is the WASC report that the high school has put together, and I wanted to pay an appreciation to Principal Kleinschmidt and her whole team. they put together a really terrific process to go through this WASC effort, which is detailed, lengthy, thoughtful, and this is a terrific document, which is a close analysis of the program and data, a reflection on progress and things they would like to do going forward. And so the WASC visiting team will be coming soon, and they will have read this carefully, and they'll go through this process, and they'll give us feedback. And the goal is to be able to get a 6-year accreditation, and I feel confident that we'll be able to get that. So anyways, hats off to her team over there, and they've just done a fabulous job. I feel so good about all of our schools. And then when you see this kind of an analysis of a place, you're like, wow, some good thinking going on. Later on, I think Dr. Beekson, when she gives some data update to you, maybe will mention the fact that we've started a group called the LCAP work group. Miss Fields, the union president in the back, actually had a clever name for it called the El Capitans, I think. So I think this is a good thing for us. We're very pleased to be doing this, and I think it came out of the negotiations process last year and reflecting on communications and partnerships and how do we make decisions together and put that LCAP together, because it's an important document. It's really our strategic plan as well, and guides our work, and there's lots of budget expenditures in there. So Dr. Beeson, I think the group has met twice, and Ms. Frucci is on that as well. So we're excited about that moving forward. It's a lot of work, and we appreciate people's commitment to that with us. And I think Mr. Rahill's, I believe he is going to talk about this, but on Tuesday we were in Sacramento listening to school services and getting an update on our new governor's budget proposal going into next year. So I'll leave that to Mr. Rahill to get into detail. So there it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Young. Okay, so right now I am going to pause for a second, and I am going to dismiss our wonderful high school students and say thank you very much for a great report.
All right, guys. Thank you. Well done.
And while they're getting ready, we can get organized because it's time for our reports. Do any of you have a report to make? We'll start with Mr. Wing at the end, and we'll kind of take the circle around.
I just want to reflect off of Dr. Young. A lot of times you have the opportunity working at different companies and working at different things where you see stuff that's just sitting there that may be old for them or not being used. But, I talk a lot about the school district and our needs in the district. And because of that, I was able to get the 2 UPSs and the 2 racks. They're probably $30,000 a piece, the 2 UPSs, and they were just on the verge of no longer going to be good, but I recognized that they were still boxed up with a date going, okay, these need to be taken care of. But, if we have people in our community who works for any type of company and, it may be old for them, but it may be a whole lot better than what we have here at the district. And, reach out to us and see if we could use it, and it would really help us. And I know the older UPSs, you said 10 minutes. I think they would be happy if they had 1 or 2 minutes. With the older UPSs now, we have 3 hours on each one, 5 hours on each one. So
Wow. 5 minutes to 5 hours.
Not bad.
So not losing all of our data that was done throughout the day on a night outage is a big deal.
He's referencing Mr. Sharif, who also does great
Yes.
work back in the. Can you scan the camera on yourself back there, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm looking back at one of our IT guys. So, but anyways, it's happy. I'm glad that the district was able to use the equipment and stuff that I got for you, and I'm always keeping my eyes open as I'm doing various different jobs. So, and not only just for IT, but I also want to talk about our maintenance guys and just the wonderful work that they continue to do and the efforts they did over the Christmas break and just making our schools fresh and everything, and then all the storm events the last few days that the extra cleanup and making sure that we don't flood all of our rooms and stuff, and just thank them for all that and their great leader Alfredo. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Zeta.
Yes. Can you hear me? This week or last week, I attended an event at the Benicia High School. It was a parent speaker series, and you were there, right, Dr. Yang? It was about suicide, and Justin Keppel, I think he's a ninth grade counselor from what I understand, and Rosalind Daniel, our mental health clinician, was there. The movie was called The S Word, and it was a film following suicide survivors, or family members and friends of somebody that had died by suicide. And you followed the path of what they went through. It was very powerful. It was very powerful. I was in tears. It was interesting to hear from the woman whose son, Kyle Highland, they were there. She was there, and she was explaining some stuff that she had gone through. But the movie was very powerful, and I understand now that our district has the rights to that movie. And it sounds to me like there was a lot of interest from parents that were in attendance. There were some students in attendance. They were very interested in either seeing that move forward or having, I'm not sure what we have currently at the high school or the junior high school level that addresses these issues, but it was a good film, and it might have to be something where the students would have the parents sign, to be able to see it. But I thought it was very powerful. It's the second leading cause of death in 15 to 24-year-olds. I thought that was a lot. Then also, we're talking about the Kyle Highland Teen Center. They're having an open house that's coming up on January 25th from 4 to 6:30 at their 1135 Church Street address. I think it's their anniversary of either when it started or at that location. And I want step back just a second, talking about the suicide prevention. They were talking about a group called Sources of Strength program. Is that still active, or it is still active? It is still active. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that, because it seemed like some people weren't involved in it, or they're not doing it as much, or that's the impression that I was getting. So, and finally, I wanted to say this morning I went to Robert Semple. I was invited, or we were invited, to go to Robert Semple to watch a presentation by our police chief and one of the fire chiefs, and our principal at Robert Semple, Mrs. Moore. The presentation went to a young lady, second grader, Laura Dinsdale, and apparently I found out through this process was that there was a medical emergency at her home, and her mom was having a seizure, and she, at second grade age, she called 911 and was very calm and handled the emergency quite well. I was talking to her parents afterwards, and they said she even took the dog and put the dog into a separate room because they know the dog doesn't get along very well with outsiders. And she did everything so wonderfully, and she was, given a lot of accolades, and she got a necklace with a dragon on it, representative of the school she's at. I mean, it was wonderful. The whole school came in. It was wonderful. So I was glad to be there, to be a part of. So that's all I have to share.
As we all are putting our calendars together for the spring, I would just wanted to point out that the Benicia Run for Education, our annual fundraiser for the BEF Foundation, will be Sunday, May 5th, 2019. So, whether you want to participate as a runner, walker, or a volunteer, it'd be great to have you out on that date. So if you can get them on your calendar now. Thank you.
So I still have my vest from last year when I was a
Oh,
volunteer.
good.
Can I just use it?
Yeah,
I'm
you
all
can just
set?
use that again. I'll sign you up.
Okay, just sign me up. Okay, I also took I had the privilege today of going to the middle school for a little while. In fact, I ended up walking with not only Mr. Scott, but I ended up walking with Dr. Beatson as well. So we were hitting a few classes, trying to touch base on new teachers. So it was really a good day. It was very positive. The kids are out there. Yeah, they're all taller than me, but you know what's pretty amazing is the flow of the kids on the campus when they're all out there and the bell is ringing and they're moving. It's like they move well and it's calm. So that was really good to see. So that was my day today was the middle school.
Could I say one other thing?
I don't know. You got a talking chip there?
Yep, I do. A lot of fundraisers coming up, crab
Yes.
feeds, the band crab feeds in a couple of weeks. There's still limited spots open for that. All of our elementary schools have their dinner auctions coming up. And I know there's a wrestling one, a track one, so look in the events at the different schools and for them. And I know I usually try to go to all the elementary ones and they fill up pretty fast. So,
Mhm.
but you know, they're always a great time. So, and
No, they
our
are.
community, thank you for your support.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to comments from members of the audience. So members of the public may address the board at a regular meeting on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards may be completed requesting to address the board. They are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak at regular meetings on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for a public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. Please note that the speaking time cannot be delegated from one person to another. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Do we have any speakers? We do not. Okay, so the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There'll be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor
It
say aye.
Needs a roll call
Oh,
vote because of resolution.
Oh, that's right, because we have a, right. Roll call?
President Pruitt,
Yes.
Trustee Hogan,
Yes.
Trustee Maselli,
Yes.
Trustee Zan,
Yes.
Trustee Wing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we do have a gift which we usually publicize. So Dr. Hoagland, do you have the gift?
Yes, and I want to thank Stan Houston from ABC Music for a donation of $500 to BUSD in products of vintage cornets and percussion gear. Thank you again for your always generous support of the school district.
Okay. With that said, we're going to move on to discussion items. And the first discussion item will be Dr. Young and Mr. Rahill discuss sharing their workshop that they attended on the governor's budget.
Yeah, great. Good evening. Yeah, we went on Tuesday to Sacramento. Governor Newsom presented his proposal for next year's budget, fiscal year starting July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. So the highlights from that are each year he proposes a cost of living adjustment, which gets applied to our state funding for schools, the local control funding formula. So he is proposing a cost of living adjustment of 3.46%. It's a little bit higher than what was estimated previously. The other big ticket item is the governor is also proposing for the state of California to contribute more into the teachers and certificated employees STRS retirement plan. So he would like the state of California to contribute more, which would decrease the employer, the school district's projected STRS rate by 1%. So we would benefit as a district from that. wanted to point out, it is the governor's proposal right now. We have the next several months before he comes back with a May revised proposal in May, which the legislature then acts on so that they can approve a budget by June 15th for the governor's signature. But in his proposal right now, those are probably the two biggest items. It's the 3.46% COLA and the possibility or the proposal to reduce the district PERS rate by 1%. Yeah, special ed. So as a new governor, he is focusing on different areas. Special education is one of them. So he's going to be looking at that. That would also get the 3.46% COLA. You might hear a lot about early childhood education. So we're going to watch that closely in regards to how that might provide funding for early childhood education in Benicia. There is nothing proposed. He is not proposing any one-time funds. So Governor Brown, for the last 4 years, has provided allocations to schools, which were one-time in nature. He did do it for 4 years, but in Governor Newsom's proposal for the coming budget year, there is no proposal for one-time funds. There are some facility funds specifically for childcare facilities that we're going to keep our eyes on because we have some portables in those programs that need some work. And I think those are the highlights from the proposal. We'll keep our eyes and ears open as more detail comes in and can update you at future board meetings.
Mr. Rahil, you may have already touched on this, and I may have missed it. Again, my computer froze. Was there not going to be some support to districts for the CalSTRS?
That was the first, one of the first, yeah, that's one of the two big things. So right now, our employer rate that we pay into STRS, the pension plan, is projected to go up. However, the governor is proposing for the state to contribute directly into that, which would reduce our increased rate by 1%. It'll still go up, but it won't go up by as much.
So when you were referring to PERS, you were actually talking about all of
Oh, if I said PERS, I meant STRS.
Okay. All right. That's what I was listening.
I'm sorry. Yes, it is STRS. There is a proposal for the state to also contribute directly into the classified employees' PERS retirement, but that direct contribution would not impact our employer paid rate.
Right, STRS is the big one. Okay, anybody else have any questions for Mr. Rahil?
And I think the other, if I get it wrong, Tim, I think the other difference is now that the LCFF funding formulas, fully funded, the way that districts will get increases through custom. So they kept saying we're now in the era of COLA. So what's that?
Back into the era.
Back into the era of COLA, and some other interesting things about a more modern version of CalPADS, collecting information in a more unified way about students and performance, and trying to connect community colleges with K-12. I think he also has a proposal on there to make the first 2 years of community college tuition free.
Right.
So he's got quite a bit in there. And my closing point, I thought it was interesting. I know somebody who is up in Sacramento and hangs out up there, whatever, and that Governor Brown, 8 years as our governor, would have these very quick news conferences. But when our new governor, just because he's new to it, like Governor Brown would be done in about 18 minutes, 12 minutes. Governor Newsom, because he's new, his first one was 2 hours. So, wow. But over time, as he gets better and better at it, I'm sure that'll shorten. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Rahil.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we're good news. All right, any other questions for Mr. Rahil before we move on? Okay, so our next discussion item is our local control accountability plan with our Assistant Superintendent, Leslie Beatson.
Thank you. I'm excited to do this sort of two-part presentation with you tonight. I'm going to do the first part, and Stephanie Rice, Coordinator of Ed Service, is going to do the second part. A few years ago, we made a commitment to the board that we would come to you 3 times a year and give you an update on how we were doing both with our local data, our state data, implementation of our strategic plan, which is our LCAP. So the first part, let's see if I can do these 2 clicks here. The first part is really to orient you to the development process of our LCAP. What is it? How do we put it together? Why do we do that? And then the second part of the presentation will be to give you an understanding of where we are, our local progress monitoring of our goals, actions, and our local data. Just so you know, what you'll see in that data are some mixed data results. We have some things that we're really excited about. They're on the right trajectory, and some things that we're concerned about and we're really continuing to dive into. We are putting together some concrete next steps, and we're also having some conversation about a data system, and our El Capitan group can attest to this because we handed them a stack of data in all different kinds of formats. And right now we don't have any one system that you can build tests in, pull data from, create easy to read charts. So not every system talks to each other. And so it is a ridiculous amount of person power and has error because you're counting and putting things together in a way. So we're starting to look at different systems that are out there that can help us make sure that we're really accurate, and we're also returning data to teachers in a timely way. That's something that we are struggling with. Is teachers are working really hard. They give an assessment, they input their assessment into one particular system, and then we go around and we're trying to pull things together, and we're not getting it back to them fast enough so that it's usable. So that's something that we're looking into. Of course, we ground all the work that we do in our district vision and belief statements, and so we always put those up here just to be that reminder that this is why we're doing the work that we're doing, so that we graduate students who have all of those qualities that are listed there in that slide. So just a brief history. The LCAP came into effect following the new funding formula law, the LCFF, the Local Control Funding Formula, back in 2013. So along with a new funding formula came a new template for accountability and compliance. The state creates the template. It is not always the most user-friendly, but that is the template that we have to use, so it can be pretty tricky to navigate. What we try to do, though, is move it past just a compliance document into something that really is this roadmap for continuous improvement that we're looking at. How do we do what we're doing, and how do we continue to do it better? A couple things to note this year. Tonight, last board meeting, I talked with you about our CASP data. We have been notified that we are in differentiated assistance, which is formerly known as program improvement. So what happens for that, and that's as a district, not at a particular school site. If you have a particular student group that is in the red, remember that color coding system, that in 2 areas over 2 years, you are eligible for differentiated assistance. The good news about this is we've already started some of that work along with the other districts in the state of California. So we've started working on looking at our systems of support for both academics, behavior, and social emotional learning, because that is a big movement in the state to help districts that are in differentiated assistance. So we got right on that train before we were in this position. What happens for differentiated assistance, and I will bring you back more information, but we work closely with our county partners, and a couple of people from our county come out to us and they take us through data, big deep data dive in those 2 areas. Oh, I should tell you, we were identified in differentiated assistance for our students who are in special education for academics, so they did not do well on their math and English SBAC test, and for suspension. So those are the 2 areas. We also are in differentiated assistance for our students who are African American for their academics, suspensions, and chronic absenteeism. Okay, so 2 student groups over 2 years for those areas. So anyway, the county will come out, they will look closely with us at our data, we'll target an inquiry of something that we really are trying to figure out what we want to, why we're performing the way we're performing. And that's the first visit. The second visit, they come back and they do a school site walk. And they collect evidence of practice. And then they'll come back a third time with a report pulling together all of our data and their evidence of practice from their walk and give us, here's what you're doing really, really well, and here are some recommendations for next steps. And so that's the statewide process for differentiated assistance. We're pretty lucky because many counties do that as a whole. So they pull every county together and do it as kind of one big group, and ours, because we're small enough, they're coming out and individualizing it for us. So that's one. We don't like to be in differentiated assistance, but it's a good process for us to go through, and we're hoping to learn a lot. The other piece that we just were notified in mid-November, I believe, was that the state had some money that they are sending us. It's a grant, one-time grant, $520,000, which is a big chunk of money, but it is going to be, we have to develop a plan, which I will bring to you sometime at one of our two board meetings in February, to support our students who are low performing. So this is called the Low Performing Student Block Grant. And it is to support students who got a 1, which is the lowest level, on the SBAC in both reading and math, and who are not our unduplicated students. So they are not our socioeconomically disadvantaged, our EL, our foster or homeless youth, or our special ed students. So these are other students in our district that are still not performing well. And so, yes, and this is statewide. So this money, it's about $2,000 per student, and every district in the state is getting some of that money, has to develop this plan, and it has to be into the state by March 1st, and then we have 2 years to spend it. So we're working, we've started talking with administrators about it. Today I met with 2 student groups at the middle school. Tomorrow I'm meeting with student groups at the high school to get their feedback on what's working, what's not working, what might work, so that we can get their voice in this, and then we'll be meeting with staff and continuing to talk about what are the right next things for us to do. So back to the LCAP, the orientation. I think of the LCAP as in chapters, and so there are 5 chapters. The first part is a plan summary. I always think of it as the Cliff Notes. The second part is an annual update, which really tells us, you said you were going to do all these things and you were going to meet these goals. How did you really do? So it's really where you put your estimated and your actuals. The third part is stakeholder engagement, because a huge part of this law for LCAP is getting voice and input from all stakeholders, students, staff, and parents. Then there's a section, a chapter on goals, outcomes, actions, and budget. So that's our goals that we're currently working on. And then it used to be called section 5, services for unduplicated students. That's not new information, but that's culled out of the goals, actions, and services section and really outlined. So what are we doing for the students who are free and reduced lunch, EL, and foster and homeless youth? So. Oh, geez. Sorry. I'm doing 2. No, I'll remember. Gary will give me that. I knew I was going to do that. Get stuck in here. So just quickly, the 3-year plan summary. Like I said, it's like the Cliff Notes. It tells us the story of the BUSD. It's got our mission and vision. It highlights some of the actions and services in the plan. It also goes into great detail about our greatest strengths and areas of need, and that's done by site, and it's based on data. And we have to identify performance gaps. Okay, annual update is that next section, and that's really where we report on our progress towards our outcomes, how effective were the things that we said we were going to do, and our budget. Stakeholder engagement, we have to, by law, have a parent advisory group. We also work closely with District Curriculum Council and now our El Capitan's work group that meets at least once a month. And we solicit feedback from parents, students, and staff through surveys, through forums, lots of different ways. And this particular section just describes how we do all of that. Then we have our goals, actions, and outcomes, and this really is related to the state priorities. So we have to link everything that we're doing to standards, student outcomes, school climate, course access. So there's 8 state priorities, and you can see those there. They have to be identified need. We have to link them to measurable outcomes and talk about what students are served. Is it all students or is it targeted for certain students? And then that chapter 5, the services for unduplicated, and again, we just pull the information out. But this year, that section is being revised, and I haven't seen exactly what it looks like yet, but it's going to be a much clearer link between where it lands in the goals, actions, and services and in this section. And I just learned yesterday, I think, from Mr. Rayhill, who went to a meeting and did not have a chance to put it in, but there's another, I don't know if it's a brand new section or a subsection, that is another section to make it sort of cliff notes for parents, make it much easier to read for parents. So I have not seen what that looks like in a new template yet. So our current LCAP strategic plan is about instructional practices and assessment, professional development, access and equity, and social emotional wellness. So it's really our largest goal. It's got a lot in there, but it's a good goal, but it's very, very robust. Some highlights, I'm not going to read all of these to you, but just there's information in there about the school organizational shift. So it talks about Liberty High School learning through interests. We started some intervention in grade 2 at the elementary sites. In curriculum and instruction, we're doing some piloting of history and social science at the middle school and piloting some phonics and conventions work at the elementary school. Equity and access. We often will look at our Title I schools and say they need something more than the rest of our schools. So they have some tutoring to offer students after school. They have some summer program offerings because we know that that's a need. At the bottom of this slide, and I'm not going to go through it, will this mess you up? If you click on the progress monitoring tool, those, I should have asked you that beforehand. They're links. They're charts that we've done in the past. I'm not going to go through this, but in this particular chart, I call it the red, yellow, green chart. It lists all the actions and services, and each, about 3 times a year, I update it, like, have we done this, or is it in progress, or is it not happening this year for whatever reason? And then try to update where we are with our data points from our measurable outcomes. Some of it is end of the year data, so a lot of it I can't update, or it's lag data, exactly. And then the other the other document that's linked in there is the progress report, and that shows year to year. So off to the right, it shows results, and those are the measurable outcomes in the LCAP, and then just how are we doing year to year. And again, that's lag data. So there's not a lot in there for this year's plan at this point in time. But that's just a way for us to continue to progress monitor and make it easier for you to read. Thank you. Other highlights and actions and services, professional development. A great new thing that we're doing this year is the Inclusive Practices Academy, and that is teachers and administrators learning alongside each other for about 6 months, once a month, and we're studying culturally responsive practices and universally designed practices in order to reach our most struggling students. And we have coaches in our LCAP, and a lot of work that they're doing is listed there. And one of the new tasks that we asked them to do this year was to work closely for the beginning of the year with all of our new teachers K-8. And we did support some teachers in the high school as well with coaching, is just launching their career here at BUSD, working side by side with someone for about 7 weeks of support. Goal 2 really has to do with our modernization and infrastructure. So it's about devices, infrastructure, and facilities in 21st century spaces. So it's about technology. And then we do have a couple items in there around our bond, just because this is our strategic plan and we want to paint that whole picture. And then goal 3 in our LCAP is about parent engagement and community partnerships. And so it talks about the work that we do with communicating with parents and our parent organizations. And now, that was kind of part 1. The LCAP. You do, I think I attached the LCAP for your reading pleasure, but if you have, yeah, it's really long. And I can, if anybody gets confused, because it is really tricky to read, they don't make the layout very easy, just give me a shout out and I'll kind of walk you through that a little bit. But I'm excited to bring Stephanie up to the podium and she's going to talk about our local data. Want me to click? So successful at that.
All right. Good evening. So I'm going to present to you the local data story. And before I start, for those of you that have been here, you've heard this over and over. And for those of you that are new, welcome. But when we talk about data, we see graphs and numbers and colors. But I do want to recognize that the data is a reflection of the hard work that our students and our teachers are doing. So it is personal. So I want to look at that with the lens of the hard work that's going on. And also, when you're looking at the data slides, really noticing our shades of green, which is our met and exceeded, and know that we're also definitely digging into our not yet met, our yellows and reds. All right, thank you. So I have data for you today from kindergarten through 5th grade, and then I also have high school data. I do not currently have middle school data to share with you. The middle school right now is currently working on coming together with unified assessments. For example, math is looking at unified chapter assessments to pull some problems that will reflect a good measure, as well as coming together as a site to do the IABs, which are the interim assessment blocks that are practice tests for the CASP, that each department are going to take a piece of that. So that is currently happening, and I should be having data from them soon. All right. So for our ELA and our history social science, we have our 9th through 11th grade overall scores. They gave the IABs, which is the preparation test for the CASP. And they scored similar to where they were at this time last year, with a slight increase. And our 2nd through 5th grade overall score, they give the Fontes and Pinnell, it's a reading assessment, both decoding and comprehension, which they were also similar to last year. And then our 1st grade overall, this, what I'm projecting now may look different than what you have on your screen. And what I wanted to point out is when we were data digging into our 1st grade overall, and the DRA is also a reading measure, they went from 68% down to 46%. And going through the process of figuring out the wonders and the whys, we did not have our cut point set correctly. So I'm actually pleased to say our change is that they actually increased from where they were at this time last year to now this year. Sure. Yes, but I had to share. Okay, great. And then also, we look at our student groups, and there's still a significant gap identified with all student groups. And the largest performance gap in our ELA is with students with disabilities. History, social science, this is actually new data to share. When asking the high school for some test results, they gave us some science and history as well. So we dug into that. It was U.S. history, world civ, and American government. And but what was interesting as we dug in to the student group data, out of all subjects, the largest discrepancy for our student groups are African Americans, our English language learners, students with disabilities, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, was most prevalent in the history social sciences. So I'll go into next steps there, and that's when I'll share some information on that. So also you have several slides I've shared with you. I'm not going to go through each individual graph with you, but what I did provide you with was the overall data from the groups. There will be a link at the bottom where you can click and it will break it down to specific. For example, math, you can look at integrated 1 versus integrated 3. And then there's also going to be a slide with student groups and links so that you can look at particular sites at elementary, etc. So there's tons of data, and if there's something that you don't find in there that you would like to know about, I'd be happy to bring that to you as well. But some of the important parts with our data is next steps. So what are we doing with our data? We know in Benicia Unified we're constantly monitoring, rechecking what we're doing and trying to find something better for our kids. And overall, through all of our subjects, like Dr. Beatson commented on, we're providing professional development for our teachers in culturally responsive teaching, in universal design for learning, reaching all students. We have decided to have a TK through 12 kind of study group for ELA and math. And then we want to look into, Dr. Beatson commented on as well, as some universal screeners. Right now, teachers are coming up with assessments and trying to rework it, and we're looking into if there's more of a consistent universal screener that we can use just for these benchmarks where we're checking in district-wide. So that's something we're doing. And also to promote consistency with benchmarks at all levels. Some other things that we're doing, looking at our student group gaps, is we are piloting an EL support program called Imagine Learning in our K-8, and that's going to support our level 1 and level 2 language learners. And we're collecting data on that currently. And then we're going to also dig into finding out, excuse me, I talk in the microphone, finding out, you know, the large discrepancy of performance with certain student groups, and it really standing out in our history, social science, and then the next one, which we'll see, is science. And so the wonder is wanting to dig into the exposure of nonfiction text, since both of those subjects are so nonfiction text, both reading and writing heavy. So that was a wonder that came out of digging into the data. So we also had math and science data, and there was consistency in math performance across the grade levels in elementary, and that's something that we have been finding now that we have had a couple years with our everyday mathematics. Our elementary scores are strong on our benchmarks. We have scores for our high school, integrated 1, integrated 1B, 2, and 3. They came together and used a CPM chapter assessment and pulled the problems that they felt would show mastery. And then, again, we noticed a considerable performance gap in both. And then science, they provided us scores for their NGSS physics, which is our 9th grade science, and our NGSS bio. So we have some data on that to look at as well. So next steps for math and science. It's some of them, you know, I shared are very similar with what we're doing with our ELA and our history. Definitely providing professional development for our teachers, and then providing coaching support. That's a big piece. We also, Dr. Beatson talked about returning the data to the teachers, and that's an obstacle we're facing right now, is getting it on a fast enough turnaround time, because ultimately I would like to get much more feedback from teachers and possibly get to the point where teachers are representing alongside, because this is their story. But right now I did get some feedback from our science department, which they're new to this, and some feedback that they gave was they're trying some things. So what was new was our shift to NGSS physics and bio, and NGSS physics second semester last year identified the students that were not proficient, grades wise, D's and F's. And they as a department dug deeper into how are these students doing across the subject area. And if the student was just failing in their class, they reached out to teachers and were trying to find out how they were connecting with the kids. They also, some teachers were reaching out to parents, having conferences with students. They're utilizing their access period to offer support for the students. As well as the next step was they passed on some of this data to the NGSS bio teachers so they weren't starting from scratch on some of the things that were working and some concerns. So they said, by no means do we have this formulaic approach yet. We're monitoring throughout the year to see if it's made a difference. But that's that next step that we're wanting to see, is digging in and trying something out, and we're going to see the impact and the positive that it's making on our students. So I'm not going to go through all these slides on the data, but I just wanted to share with you again how to look at it. This is the first grade reading, and the link on the bottom would break it down by school site. Our first grade does a separate assessment than our second through fifth. That's why they're broken off. But again, acknowledging the proficient, advanced, and then also looking at where our kids are just making progress or limited. And then you'll have a data table for our student groups. Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at the one that's attached to your agenda, remember that we found the wrong cut point. So that particular data slide will be
Looks
wrong, and we can,
different.
yes.
Okay, I got it.
I'm sure you breathed a great sigh of relief when you
Oh,
adjusted the
that
cut.
took, yes, yes. I'm glad it was just that, but we were ready to dig in if it wasn't. One other difference in how the slides look, just that I wanted to point out since we have some new members, is, I don't want to go too fast to make you dizzy, but at times you'll see a 3-band, and like I spoke about, the BHS ELA did the interim assessments, again, the assessments preparing you for CASP, and that is done through a system called TOMS, and it breaks it down just in the 3 bands. And it's due to the number of questions being a much smaller width, and the standard deviation of when, how many times the kids are at or are near. So they don't differentiate in the practice test whether or not they're not going to predict whether they're going to be proficient or near. So it's combined. That's why it looks different. We have student groups. So again, I'm not going to go through each slide, but I would be happy to answer some questions. This is just one measure, but it's important to stop and look at where we are as a district along the way so that, you know, we can talk about it as departments or grade levels or sites. But if you haven't been out to classrooms yet, I urge you to get in and actually see what's going on. That is a piece that we're really trying to figure out, because when you walk into the classrooms and see the dynamics and the learning going on, that we don't necessarily see the transfer, definitely on CASP. So that's something that we're digging into.
And I just want to add one thing, Stephanie, thank you. First of all, putting this together is a ton of work with all of this data and all of those links to courses and grade levels and student groups. But one of the things that we're going to really be looking at is this idea of nonfiction. The standards, the Common Core standards, when they came out, made a huge shift from literary reading and writing to nonfiction reading and writing. And I believe it is at the elementary level, 40% nonfiction, 60% fiction, and then middle switches to 60-40. And then by the time they're in high school, it's 80-20. And while we know they read out of, textbook and different things, we need to continue to teach them. So there's the old adage, first you learn how to read and then you read how to learn. However, as the material changes, becomes more unfamiliar, maybe less interesting in some ways and more nonfiction, we have to continue to teach them how to read and write that. So it's not only learning the content, but learning how to read that content. And so we're talking about how do we beef up reading and writing in all areas and all content areas in the nonfiction realm. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
And I apologize. I know you were excited that I was done. But there is one more important piece that I would like to share with you. Along with the TK-12 look into English language arts and math and how we align as a district, we are going to pick one starting point, and that's going to be mathematics. And that's due to some connections we have. We reached out to Gail Standiford. She is works with the UC Davis Math Project as well as a CPM trainer. And I was asking her the question about why is what I'm seeing here not aligning in different layers. So we want to do a walk, elementary through high school. Gail will be one member walking through middle school and high school, along with Erica. She is forgive me that I'm forgetting her last name right now. She's new to our county Office of Education, and she's project manager of mathematics. So she's going to also be an outside lens. And then Pam Hutchinson, who has done some work with us throughout the years from UC Davis Math Project, is also going to come and along with Erica to assist us through some walks in our elementary sites so we can just start collecting data on the programs, the mathematical practices, as well as how we are aligning from elementary, middle to high school. So that will be just a step into digging in. So I wanted to share that with you, and that will be upcoming later this month into February so that we can then have some data to start looking at in our TK through 12 teams. Thank you.
Quick question on, on slides 31 to 33. Do we really have that many people below basic, or is that the last three in your set?
Are you talking about
The high school
history, social
science, and history, BHS science?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things we're looking at is, and a question that I have is, what supports are we providing for the students? And what, this is also one measure. They were talking about science was coming up with a benchmark to put in here, but their shift in GSS is a lot of, hands-on projects and such. But yeah, the concern is that we have that many on this assessment. So we're definitely looking into that.
One of the things I've been thinking about is the importance of reading, right? And I know that we have that as a focus in the district. I was looking at a study, and it was on fifth graders, and the students that read 90 minutes a day would score the 98th percentile on norm reference tests, and then it would sort of go down from that point. So when you look at the SBAC, it's a complicated and big reading comprehension test, largely even in mathematics. It's reading. So and it's one of these interesting challenges, and I get too into this in our culture, where reading has taken on different dynamic and different challenges for us with cell phones and Twitter and smaller thoughts sort of capsulized in shorter sentences, when what we ask students to do is read longer, more complex passages. So that's something else we're taking a good clear look at. Because you walk around the district, you do see students reading tons. So we have to keep getting after it.
Well, I think also too, just wanted to share, going through the elementary schools, and Sherry, I don't know if you've seen it in classes yet, but kids right now are doing a lot of nonfiction. And what I think is really exciting is they're writing reports based on their nonfiction. So that's happening to some degree. So, and that's real important, because that's the one genre I think that we often don't worry about kids trying to extract information from and respond to, because you figure it's textual. So, but I have seen it in the elementary schools. I've been seeing it the last few weeks that I've been walking. So, and they're doing.
Dig in there.
Pardon me?
The middle school is 8th grade, right? It's going to be doing a unit. Yep.
Yes, we're going to be there, aren't we? Yeah, so I think it's good that we're seeing the little ones doing it, so.
Definitely. There's
Yeah.
been a transformation. So. Right. Thank you.
Thanks. Well done. Good work.
Yes, good evening again. Yeah, we have our auditor from James Marta CPA firm, Jesse, and your last name escapes me.
Deal.
Yes. And we have two audits. We have our regular financial audit, which includes the general fund and all of our other funds, including our facility bond fund. And then as required by law, we also have a second audit, a separate audit for our bond facility fund that the voters passed a few years ago, the Measure S, $50 million Measure S facility bond. So all of that's included in the main audit as well, but we're also required to pull that out and create a separate audit just for that Measure S school facility bond. So Jesse will present some highlights for the audit for you and take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and give you the overall highlights of the district audit first. And so the audit, as you know, is a process of accountability to the public and the board. And on page 2, you'll notice that our opinion is unmodified. And I'll explain what that is shortly. A good reference for you to use is a MD&A. It's in reference on page 4 through 9. And that basically is management's summary of what transpired during the fiscal year. And so if you don't want to read the entire 80, 90 page audit report, that's the best use of your time. And what I did is I pulled out the key financial statistics from the MD&A, just so you know where we ended up and what the changes in that position were. So the government-wide net position decreased by 3.6 million, and the biggest changes were, so 4 million of that was for just normal operations, and then there's $411,000 for a prior period adjustment because we implemented GASB 75, which is the other post-employment benefits. So we had to recognize that with the full accrual, and that's basically what we did here. And I mentioned that last year when I came on, that we were going to have that change in accounting principle in fiscal year 17-18. The total fund revenues, they increased by 3.7%. Total fund expenses were also up by 0.18%. And of that amount, salaries and benefits, they increased by 2.74%. Capital outlay, you guys still are using the bond expenditures, and debt service expenditures went down by 3.55%. And then the general fund balance, it decreased by 57,000, and it's at 7.1 million. So here is the statement of where I pull those items from, and so you can see overall we had a decrease of about $3.9 million. And this is basically the income statement as a whole, summary of the statement of activities, so you can see where the revenues and expenditures are. And then if you step back and look at just a general fund, you can see the makeup of the revenues. Almost 83% is LCFF. And Tim mentioned in his report earlier that the LCFF is starting to taper out. It's going to just be with a COLA increases. And the one-time funds are also going to stop going forward. But this is as of 17-18. So we had 871,000 of one-time revenues. And then to take a look at the general fund expenditures, you can see about 89% of that is tied up in salaries and benefits. So as you know, the PERS and STRS contributions are increasing. So this is a good thing to be just mindful when you're negotiating salaries going forward, just because those contribution percentages are still increasing. And I'm not going to go over the economic outlook because Tim pretty much covered it. To look at the financial trends and analysis, this is like a couple year look back, and you can see how we've been trending. You can see the long-term debt has increased substantially. That's because of the passage of the bond measure. You had the increases in pension liability, and then the increases in the net OPEB liability. So those are the biggest contributing factors from why we went from 113 million to 155.6 million from a couple years ago. So along with our audit opinion, we are required to issue 4 other communications. We have the report on state compliance. We have the internal control report. We have the report on federal compliance, and then we have the governance letter that we issue to the board. Focusing on the state compliance, we had a qualified opinion. We had 1 finding, and so that was in regards to the school accountability report card. Now, this has already been resolved, but when we were doing our audit procedures, we always do a look back to the school accountability report card that's filed in that fiscal year that we're auditing. So it's always a year behind. And so what we found is just some of the comments, they weren't consistent with what was reported on the facilities inspection tool, and then what went into the actual filed STARK report. So there is no fiscal impact. Management has already resolved this, but as of that point in time, this is the issue that came up. And that was the only reason why we couldn't have an unmodified opinion, that's a clean opinion on the state compliance report. For the internal control letter, we had 1 deficiency, that's with the ASB. And this is very common, and management's already on top of this. But basically what happened was at Benicia Middle School and Mary Farmar Elementary, the fundraising approval forms were not being used. And it's important that those are used just because the principal on site needs to be aware of all the liability issues that can come out of any revenue producing activities. So that could potentially open up issues for the district as a whole. And also they need to know about what revenue activities are being performed, so they have an expectation of what revenues could be collected, because that could be another issue of cash collections. So again, management's already on top of this. They've already communicated to those sites, so we don't anticipate this being a repeat issue. And we've already in the past done a seminar, and we're open to do that again if the district needs assistance with that. As far as the federal compliance audit, it was an unmodified opinion. There's nothing to report on that, so no findings there. And then we also looked back to the year prior to see if there's any issues, and there were no issues at that time that we needed to follow up on. So nothing to report there. And then you have the governance letter that we issued. There was nothing that came out that we needed to address to you. So the audit was on time. We were able to get in and get out. And the only change there was the change in accounting principle due to GASB 75 that was already communicated to you. And I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation of the change and how it impacted the financials. So the district does have a deficit in the general fund over the last 2 of the last 3 years, but that's expected because of the expenditures and salary increases that went through. But I think you have a great management team; they're on top of it. And if you look back at the trends and analysis, you can see that the deficit is lower than it was in the last previous years. So I think management is making sound decisions to get on top of that. And so we wanted to acknowledge Tim and his staff for their assistance with the entire audit process. We were able to get everything done in an efficient manner. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to slide 7, the summary statement of activities. Now the government activities 2017 and 2018. Is that general fund expenditures that we're looking at? I mean, when it breaks
No,
down,
this is all funds. The statement of activities is everything put together. If we go, and it's not on the slide, but
So, Jesse, just to clarify, this is everything except the bond fund, right?
this includes the bond
This
fund.
does include the bond
Yes, this is
fund.
all
Okay.
funds. Yes.
Including solar.
I guess the question that I have is if you go down toward the bottom of the expenses, interest on long-term debt, that rose, about $2 million. Is that money that's coming out of the general fund to pay the long? I don't know. How does that work?
No. So this is just everything aggregated together. If you actually, do you have the financial report in front of you? I can tell you where to look.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to page 14 on the audit report.
Okay.
And in the middle, so you see the bond interest and redemption fund. That fund
Okay, yes.
is responsible for paying all of the debt.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so there's $7.8 million there. And then you can see the general fund, the very first column there, $94,000. So I imagine that's like leases.
Yeah, that's
like capital leases.
Yeah, money-wise, that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
We're just happy that high school associated student body fund was not on there again.
Yes.
That they finally got that taken care
Yeah,
of.
we're making some progress.
I assume, all right, shouldn't assume, but I am trusting because there's new staff at both middle and farmer, that it's just about getting them up to speed so that they understand what the components are. 'Cause they wouldn't know all that first coming in. So, correct.
Thank you. You're welcome. And now I'm going to get into the Measure S audit. Oh, okay. Sure.
I need a motion to approve the district audit.
I'll make a motion to approve the district audit as submitted.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay. I am going to go ahead and discuss the Measure S bond audit. And so this is the 4th year of the bond audit. And so there's a performance piece and then there's a financial piece that's required. So the performance piece is basically, are all the expenditures of the bond measure aligning with the bond text? So that's basically what we have to test on top of the internal controls of the bond measure and then also presenting the financial statements. So we had to make sure the district's tracking those separately and they have someone responsible for oversight. In the financial audit, basically it's the control process, the testing of the transactions, and then presenting them in an audit report. So I'm not going to go over, you guys already know what the bond was passed for. So here are the financial results. So this is basically the income statement, if you will. So you had some interest that came in. That's the revenue, the $370,000, and then we spent $5.6 million. And so that's what we tested when we were doing the bond audit. And so we are now, so this is as of June 30, 2018. So as of that point in time, we had $27.8 million as your fund balance for the bond. And so you can see that it's all restricted for bond projects. You can see it, the fund balance, that entire amount. So it's all in the Cassia County Treasury, and then you have a little bit of an accounts payable of $66,890. So again, as I mentioned, the performance audit, we looked at the project status, we looked at the documents, and then we also issued a communication letter to the Oversight Committee. We tested all the expenditures and found that they were in accordance with the bond measure S text, so there were no findings. That's good news. And then we issued an unmodified opinion on the bond audit. So that means it's a clean audit, no control deficiencies or material weaknesses. And then we issued a governance letter saying the same thing, that we didn't have any issues when we did the bond audit. And so there's nothing to report. And again, just want to thank management for their hard work and helping us get the audit done with efficiency. Any questions on the bond audit? All right, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jesse.
Where are you going now?
I was gonna go to Vacaville, but they just called me, and they said that I was late, so they're gonna push me to next month. So, yeah.
You told me that earlier.
It's okay. That's okay.
Okay, can I call for a motion to accept the financial report on the bond?
I'll make a motion to accept the bond report as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Race. Race.
I got a second something.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, we are going to go on to our last item. Consideration and approval of 2 courses from the high school. I am going to gather that Mrs. Beetson, Dr. Beetson is taking that one on. Introduction to Speech and Ethics Studies.
Excellent. Thank you. I forgot this was on there. I'm really excited to bring to you tonight 2 courses for your consideration and approval. To let you know a little bit about our process. The high schools, when they want to bring a new course in, typically it's because there's a new area of interest. There may be some new legislation around courses that need to be offered. The teachers work together. They write up a very comprehensive course outline, which you have attached. And they come and present to District Curriculum Council, not for approval, but for a question and answer period. And then once District Curriculum Council, which is a team of about 20 teachers and administrators from all levels, support the course to move forward to the board, then I bring it here to you. And we try to do it as early as possible so that they can be included in the course handbook, which goes out in February. So they're kind of doing that right now. So Intro to Speech is a semester-long course that would be offered to 9th graders as a kind of a not a gateway because it's not a gatekeeping course, but as a excitement builder to go into our speech and debate course that is offered later on. And there has been an increase in interest in the debate Intro to Speech club that's happening. So they're deciding to make this a course, and it would pair with Get Focused, which is a semester-long required 9th grade course. The other course that I'm bringing to you is Ethnic and Identity Studies, and that also is a college prep elective. It has been responsive to student interests. They've been talking a lot about this particular area of focus. And at the state level, they are having some conversation about potentially making this a future requirement elective to be offered. And so we're trying to be on the cutting edge and offer something that's really relevant to students. Last year, BHS was recognized with the Civics Learning Award. And so this is just, keeping up on that cutting edge of what's happening in our world. So those are 2 courses. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I'm hoping that you would approve these to be included at our high school.
Okay, are there any comments or questions?
Well, I'm really excited to see that you're including both of these, and especially the speech and debate, because that track of student engagement is a key indicator of college success. And so the fact that we're getting it in and starting students younger on that track is really great.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, then I'm going to call for a motion. Do I have a motion to approve the 2 courses?
I move that we approve the 2 courses as presented.
Do I have a second? Race to your
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, both classes pass. So next on our agenda, before we close the meeting, I did want to share a little bit of information. This is the first time that we've met since the holidays. We lost 2 members of our Benicia family this past holiday season, Brian Kelly and Chris Archer, who were both longtime teachers in our district. So I just wanted to close our meeting in memory of them and give our best to their family. We also lost a student, Jenna Schwartzman. And if the name sounds familiar, her dad was our councilman, Alan Schwartzman, but her mom, Jackie, was also our psychologist for a long time in our district as well. So I just wanted to put that out there to everybody, and so we're closing the meeting in that moment. Okay, so with that, meeting is adjourned.